Alright, let's try this one again. Am I recording? Yeah, it's recording. Alright, so I read something interesting. I think it was yesterday. Maybe a couple days ago. I read an article about, I'm gonna say, I think it was titled, like, the new oldest mummies that we found or something like that. Now, that was very much paraphrased. But that's what I remember it as. And, apparently, in, I think it's southern Asia, northern Chile, there have been new mummies found somewhat recently, honestly, so I think the article was posted like the day I read it, but I don't know how long ago they were actually found. I don't think it said anywhere in the article, but apparently they're dated to be about 7,000 years old, which, to put it in somewhat of a perspective, the Egyptian mummies that most people are familiar with are between 4 and 5,000 years old. And I don't even think that they were the oldest mummies. Like, whenever these ones were found, I don't think that the Egyptian mummies were considered the oldest anymore. I think that there's been at least one other set of mummies found that are older. However, I don't know if those ones were, uh, I'm gonna say artificially preserved by like humans. Um, because there have been, like, I think most of the mummies that have been found in general, are naturally preserved to where it's just they're in a climate that will naturally do that. Such as if it is in a place that is like hot and dry, it makes it really hard for bacteria to actually do what they normally do. Um, and same if it is unnaturally cold. Or I've also read up on recently, bogs are also really good at preserving mummies. We found not even just human remains, but we found so many remains in bogs from, I'm going to say eons, but obviously not quite that long, but from a very long time ago. That's where we find a lot of very old animal carcasses, and it's just because it's so, like, whenever something dies, it sinks down into the mud, and then oxygen can't get to it to allow it to decay. Although I did read just today that I think that the acid in the mud for some reason dissolves the bones, if I'm remembering correctly, of what I just read, which I might not be. All right. If you're interested in it, please go look into it. Don't take my words at face value. But I think it dissolves the bone somehow, but leaves the soft tissue, which is really weird. That seems wrong, just because of how, like, science works. Science as I know it, it should start from the outside and go in. So I don't know why it would dissolve the hard bones in the middle before the soft flesh. Um, but I don't know. Maybe this is just my own brain working. Is maybe for some reason the soft tissue is more resistant to the acids. So if they like absorb the acids and it gets into the bone, I don't know. That just doesn't seem right, especially because like calcium, like in our bones, is just obviously it's a lot denser and it's a lot harder to break down than most soft tissue, right? So I don't know. I might just be misunderstanding that or misremembering it. But what I was reading about the mummies and the mummification process here is what really struck me. Is so I'm pretty sure most people know how the Egyptians did it, right? They removed most of the internal organs except for the heart, and then they dried it out with, like, dried bodies out with salt. Now, pretty sure there were multiple different processes depending on the time period, right? But the ones that most people know is dry out the body with salt and then stuff the body with herbs and stuff like that, right? And then the hot, like the reigning class. I don't think that they were wrapped. Maybe they were wrapped. I don't quite remember. Um, and then the highest reigning class would be put in sarcophaguses and then put in temples or what have you, or in the pyramids or what have you. But these ones, the reason that it really caught my eye is because until I started reading up today, it's the first time I heard of mummification where instead of using salts, what they did was they essentially dried them out over a fire, right? They essentially smoked the bodies to kill all of the bacteria. Now, mind you, back then they didn't know they were killing the bacteria; they just knew that it worked, right? And I thought that that was just really neat. I thought it was novel to where instead of, I'm gonna say, almost applying and learning like the science of different chemicals to dry things out, they just used fire, right? That to me is just neat because, like, I think it was smoked them. I don't think it was like cooking them, right? Because that's different. Um, But I do believe that they did other things on top of it, such as these bodies. Like whenever I was reading, they were also then wrapped in like hides. So after they were smoked, they were then wrapped in hides. I believe, because I was reading up on different practices from this religion. There's three like notable. I don't want to say it, not religions, but like practices that they would do throughout the years as they slowly developed. And I'm pretty sure that even starting with the first one, I think it's called dissection, whatever. It's whenever they also remove the organs. So they would remove the organs, dry them out, and then wrap them in some sort of animal hides. And I thought that that was neat. And then also, as I was reading up on other mummification processes, I also read, was it also in Asia? I don't remember where it was. I can't remember which one it was. But well, there's two that I'm thinking of where one they essentially buried people under boats, and then I think they put like not logs but like planks over top of them, and it's just because the boats were there, it made it what you call it, made it hard for oxygen to get in there. Um, for again the natural decaying processes to take over. And then there's another one where they would use clay, where essentially they would just take the body and just cover it in clay and then bury it. And then, like, that clay would harden somewhat, or even if it didn't, it was just completely encased. So, again, no oxygen would be getting in. So, the bacteria in your body, in the bodies, couldn't do what it did. So, it would just die off after, you know, thousands of years. And I just thought that that was all interesting. Um, Mostly because like actually like I don't know. I just like science. I like reading up on random things that we find, random things that are happening in the world, right? Random progression that scientists are coming up with in this or that way. And it just gets me thinking and it gets me curious, so then I go looking stuff up. Now, everything I said here is like super brief synopsises. I essentially just briefly read over the Wikipedia article, and then whenever I would see that like this like if the article didn't explain something well, but I saw a hyperlink that led to a different article that would, I just essentially read down through them real quick before doing this because I wanted to give at least a little more context than just saying, "Hey, found out that there is older mummies that were made before Egyptians and they smoked their bodies," right? Because I found that was interesting, but it's because of the context, right? Also with those, I think it was that same group that I read that sometimes they would essentially collect the fat that would drip off of the bodies, or maybe this was a different culture, I can't remember, and then mix it into like a red paste and then smear the body over it. So that was at a different time period, I believe, than the original thing. Maybe? No, maybe I don't remember. I'll be honest, I don't remember. But it's super, I don't know. I found it interesting. So I decided that I'll talk about that today. Um Maybe more stuff like this. I don't know. I've got to essentially find things that I find interesting and then interesting enough to look into cuz I there's a lot of things that I read that I find super interesting, but I know that I find them interesting due to the context that I have around it, right? So essentially, it's me realizing that I'm interested in something and then seeing if I can figure out how to contextualize it to frame it in a way that it's just as interesting to, someone else, right? So maybe more. We'll see. We'll see. Again, just, well, right now I'm just trying stuff out. I've put down a lot of my creative efforts right now, hoping that I might pick the art up later today instead of throwing my head at a wall whenever throwing my head at a wall of gaming is how I'm going to word that, right? I've just been playing games a lot over the past couple days, and I should probably get back into not wasting my time, right? So I'm gonna say that's it for today. Thanks for watching if you did. You're awesome if you stuck around this long, and well, see you tomorrow.